Well, I've got all those Spider-Man reviews under my belt. Now I can talk about something new. It's a cartoon that's 19 years old. I like talking about older things. If I talk about something that came out last week, I'll get swept away in the endless stream of internet people all ranting and raving about the same subject. How about something no one else is talking about? I also got you guys guessing on which thing I'd review next in that Spider-Man PS4 video, and the winner was Ivo Pranjic. Thanks for having a name that's easy to say, guy. I thought saying the year it came out would be a dead giveaway, but it took a little while. This show's from a year before I was born. The Nightwatch animated series... The Spawn animated series came out in a time when cartoons were allowed to be dark, gritty, and aimed at adults without being anime. It was a strange and spooky time. I can only think of one or two other series to compare this to, but I'll bring those up another time. Now, I want to preface this whole review saying I don't think the Spawn comic is all that great, or at least the issues I've read. Todd McFarlane's an incredibly talented artist, but his writing is very in the first issues. Spawn as a character is like throwing Deadpool, Ghost Rider, and Prowler into a blender. You might raise an eyebrow at the third comparison, but Todd drew Prowler first, and the similarities are uncanny. Just swap some colors around. As of this review, I'm still plowing through issues from the 90s, and I hope to see McFarlane's writing improve with time, but who knows how long that'll take if it happens at all.
Is Spawn successful? Yeah. Is it as successful as Star Wars? Nope.
As for the animated series, it's actually quite different from the book. It's about completely different themes and almost fits into a completely different genre. It was released on HBO, so it had a higher budget than most cartoons at the time and basically no restraints. They pretty much showed whatever they felt like, be it extreme violence or cartoon nudity or this guy's face. HBO didn't give a fuck. Coincidentally, they still don't. It's pretty much the only channel that would be insane enough to greenlight shit this dark. Do I mean figuratively or literally? Maybe both? The story centers around a man named Al Simmons, a war hero slash mercenary slash person who used guns, who dies and is resurrected through mysterious means. He doesn't know how he came back at first or what he did to obtain a completely new body, but he's anything but human, and 5 years have passed since he did. Now, without a family, friends, and a face, he takes refuge in a maze of alleyways in Harlem, New York, where he spends all of his time scaring these poor homeless people and mutilating anyone who even mildly annoys him. The majority of the story takes focus away from his origins and powers and looks at more realistic scenarios. Like this crime boss who has his influence spread across a lot of the political world and is pulling strings to make himself more powerful. Until one day his whole operation starts to unravel because someone, or something, is killing his associates and stealing weapons from him. Can you guess what it is? A lot of the human characters are locked in political red tape, government cover-ups, crime investigations, and assassination attempts. It's a show that captures a lot of the ugly side of humanity between the politicians, the cults, the criminals, the wars, and the few decent people who get caught up in all of it. It may start to sound like an animated House of Cards after a while. Did I mention that there's a fucking ghost in this too? And that he's the main character? The plot is so based in reality that the weird supervillain characters that Spawn interacts with feel like an afterthought.
He is apparently a cyborg.
You'll almost get to the point where police investigation of a child killer who turns out to be a senator's illegitimate son that he's hiding in order to save his bid for the presidency is more interesting than demon guy fights a cyborg with rocket launchers in a dirty alley. I guess Spawn is less of a main character and more of an entity in the plot, though he does have some personality that shines through on rare occasions.
Listen, fat boy, I've had just about enough.
Anyway, Spawn is constantly hounded by a mysterious homeless man named
They call me Cogliostro.
Yeah, what he said. Who encourages him to do the right thing and keep himself from letting the influence of the devil affect him.
Would you know the devil if you saw him? Would you know his face, his eyes? I'm Todd McFarlane.
On the flip side, a demon from hell called the Clown, or the Violator, or something, also follows Spawn around and actively creates conflict to make Spawn stronger and push him into making bad decisions. In the comics, the Clown is super obnoxious and trying way too hard to be funny. He relies a lot on this running joke where he goes on rants about ultra excessive ways he's going to kill people, but then tears their heart out and calls it a day. While as in the show, he's more of just a creepy, disturbing, horrible monster.
You'll feel some pain.
That seems to have some of the most memorable voice acting in the show.
You assholes, that wasn't in the goddamn script. I don't think you realize what's at stake here.
He always sounds like he's having so much fun being evil as sin.
You really fucked yourself this time. Oh, this ain't over, Spawn.
You made a fucking deal.
However, Keith David turns in one of his best vocal performances ever as Spawn. He says everything with such intensity.
Your worst fucking nightmare.
No, I came back for you. Where are you?
You're about 2 seconds from wearing that smile around your ass.
When he plays a character like Goliath in Gargoyles from around the same time, he sounds sort of sullen and thoughtful. Here he sounds like a pissed off monster in eternal agony. And his occasional witty comments make him all the more lovable as the depressed hobo ghost.
Simmons is dead. No shit.
His voice is what makes the show. Any other actor would have sounded so bland in this part. Which reminds me, he does a great job despite often not having much to bounce off of. The other characters' voices are sort of all over the place. Some sound so cartoonish that it's hard to take them seriously.
You know, ex-CIA killer turned ruthless mercenary. Little more than a skeleton on a respirator for almost 3 years. I mean, please.
But others sound very dramatic and realistic.
With this solid a case against Kyle, the best I can do is try to keep him off death row.
90% of the time, though, everyone is usually speaking in a very calm and dry manner. If you watch this show with headphones, this guy's voice sounds like ASMR. I could fall asleep to the sound of this guy mumbling about forged documents regarding military hardware shipments.
It looks like someone might be diverting weapons shipments to other delivery sites, then changing the info in the computer. Now running up the numbers on tow missiles. Israel, Kuwait, database confirmation of serial numbers, ordnance shipped and received. Let's see if the satellite can verify, cross-referencing with global positioning. No signal, no position given. Jesus, those missiles never arrived.
I also think they stole a piece of this show's music and remixed it for the Twisted Metal Black soundtrack. The animation for every season is very impressive. Some of the best I've ever seen out of a TV show. You could tell a lot of time and care was put into every little scene. Everything looks so gorgeously dark. I once made a joke with a friend about the 60s Spider-Man cartoon. I said that you could take any frame of that show with Spider-Man in it and make it into a meme. Well, this show, you can take any still frame with Spawn and make it into a heavy metal album cover. The animation for his cape is so fluid and smooth, and the character designs are reasonably sophisticated for something that has to be in motion so often. This must have been a pain in the ass to draw. Thanks, Korea. You put in the work so we don't have to. The lighting is so stylized and dark that it covers some of the same ground as Batman the Animated Series, where some of the scenes are so shadowy you can see specks of dust that were on the animation cell when they put this together. I love fun little details like that. Makes everything feel more authentic. You don't get charming little blemishes like that in the era of digital animation. Instead, you get shows like Total Drama Island or Family Guy, where everything is the same character design shown in the same position from the same camera angle with maybe 2 types of lighting. Man, I don't want to sound like that guy, but something was lost when we started using computers for everything. It all looks so much lazier. Even the action cartoons. Hey, this character Angela becomes a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy later for some reason. Weird, right? Each season does something sort of different with the visuals. Season 1 has character designs almost made out of the shadows and light. They don't often have color and are more constructed by the differences of the lighting in the area around them. There may be times when there are no more than 2 colors on the screen at once, which is contrasted by sequences in daytime where everything is crystal clear. Season 2 has more of an anime approach where the character designs stay the same colors, but are shadowed in a more traditional way. It also often has this hazy blue glow that I feel like all darker cartoons from the 90s had. The backgrounds are far more detailed and grungy, and the animation on the characters is just a little bit choppier. Season 3 seems to be a sort of hybrid of the two styles, depending on the tone of the situation. Regardless of which season though, Spawn is drawn the same almost throughout. Good ol' Al looks pretty normal in the first few minutes of the show, but after that you rarely see him anymore in good lighting. He spends so much time hidden in shadows that you'd be forgiven to think he was just a silhouette with a cape. They leave him pitch black throughout the entire second and third season. Keep in mind, he's supposed to look like this. It's like some animation team absolutely refused to draw him in any more detail than that. What, you want us to have red, black, and white on the screen all at once? What are you, crazy? Do you know how cool that would look? Nah, just draw an outline with eyes and we're done.
Can I say the best shots in HBO are the ones where Spawn is 90% black, a little bit of red rimming him. You see the eyes, his head's black, his cloak is back, he's standing in front of something black, and you pull back, and you just barely see him in the shadow. Like, when I get those, I just go, oh, there it is, be still my heart. Because I laid down the law. No arms, no legs, no chest. Like, he is a head and a cape.
Oh. Yeah, okay, it was his fault. I'd say this is the best telling of the storyline, being that it wasn't that god-awful 90s movie. The special effects movie event of the year? On what planet? Are you high? Did you see the movie before you wrote that, whoever you are? There are little things that they leave out from the books to stabilize the tone, like Spawn having the power to transform into some doofy-looking white guy so he can have stilted dialogue with Wanda and her new husband. If I wanted to see a nerdy white guy have awkward conversations with women, I'd just strap a mirror to my face. Leave that shit out. So if you want to get to know Spawn, but need a filter for the horrifically 90s version of the story, head on over here. We also have a Rob Liefeld character in here, but he's a lot less cheesy. Except for that time he has a flashback to the war midway through the coitus and starts screaming and crying. That's probably the only really unintentionally funny moment in the whole series. The rest is fine, but this scene is just, The series pretty much resolved its main storylines, but it never continued any further than that and leaves on a pretty rough cliffhanger.
Let that little mystery keep you up at night.
But I guess that's what the comics are for, right? So if you want to know what happens next, you may have to stomach some of Todd McFarlane's iffy ability to tell a story. The book looks awesome, but the details needed some ironing. Don't think I hate Todd or anything just because I criticize his dialogue and scene structure. In fact, I should probably bring up a fun story to clear the air. So my dad has been a lover of comics since he was a kid growing up in the 70s, and he has 2 copies of the first issue of Spawn, which he's been a fan of since the day it hit shelves. Well, once upon a time in 2013, Todd McFarlane was doing a book signing at some fucking place, I don't know, and it was one of the worst days ever. We got there 2 hours early, and the place told everyone to grab different colored tickets. Our group got the orange tickets. They said they were serving the purple tickets first, then they got around to the red and blue tickets, and ended on orange. We walked around this building for like 5 hours waiting for the signing, and at the time an unrelated medical issue was causing my dad to bleed internally the whole time, so by the end of the night he looked like a zombie. When McFarlane finally did sign the book, he handed it to my dad, who has a cane mind you, in a stack with another book, so the one on the bottom, being the issue number 1, had the cover smudged, rendering all that time a waste. Then my dad passed out from blood loss 2 days later. Now, I'm not gonna say it's Todd's fault, because that's absurd, but it's abso-fucking-lutely Todd's fault. I also learned a lot about Todd personally that day. He went up on stage before the signing and talked about his career and imparted some advice. Like, for example, if your boss tells you to do something, blindly say yes to it, then do whatever you want to do instead.
All the changes I wanted to make on Spider-Man, they were like, no. And then I just went, screw it, and I ignored them anyways, and I did it, the sales went up, to the point that when I left, the new kid coming in, you gotta draw like that Todd guy.
So if you ever wonder why suddenly Spider-Man's webs went from being a straight line to crazy squiggles that go all over the place, it's because of Todd's flawless logic that led him to being a millionaire. Also, he kinda looks like Matthew McConaughey. There wasn't a point to that whole story, I just thought it would be fun to tell it. Shut up, it's my video. Now, this series is a hidden gem for me. People always talk about how great comic shows were in the 90s, but they always leave this one out. It's all about Batman and X-Men and Spider-Man and even Superman. Those were all fantastic, certainly better than some of the crap we have on now, but I just want to point out that they weren't the only ones worth watching back then. So let's start bugging Netflix and Hulu to stream this. Or better yet, have another DVD release. Or wait, the whole thing's on YouTube, so just watch it there for free. Well, Todd won't get royalties to keep buying more baseball hats, but you'll get to see this great show, so I guess it's a win-win. Get out there and do it!
He was rude, I only got 2 seconds, and he cost me 20 bucks. That's, you know, it's like...
Anderson prefers to let his fists do the talking.
Back off before I permanently introduce your face to your colon.